Owen Reyes didn't belong at the gala, and he knew it the second he stepped into the gold-drenched hall of the Grand Astoria Hotel. The chandeliers sparkled like 1,000 stars overhead, the orchestral music swelled through the air, and diamonds glittered from the necks of women who probably spent more on their shoes than he made in a month. He tugged at his ill-fitting blazer borrowed from his neighbor and tried not to think about the fact that he'd eaten canned soup for dinner 5 nights this week. But tonight wasn't about him. It was about his 7-year-old daughter, Sienna. Her school had been raising funds for their special education program, and some miracle of the universe got him invited after helping organize the silent auction. He'd promised her he'd try his best to talk to anyone who could help the underfunded program she thrived in. He just hadn't expected to feel this out of place. He was reaching for a glass of water at the bar when a loud crash echoed across the room. Chairs scraped. A woman gasped. Owen turned. At the far end, a drunk man in a wrinkled suit was swaying dangerously close to a server holding a tray of champagne. The man started yelling about how this was his turf, and how no corporate pretty boy was going to tell him what to do. The server flinched, nearly dropping the tray. Owen's instincts kicked in. He moved. "Hey," he said firmly, stepping between the man and the server. "You need to calm down." The drunk spun toward him, nostrils flaring. "Who the hell are you? I'm the guy who's not gonna let you ruin this night for everyone." The drunk shoved him. Owen didn't budge. A few security guards rushed in, finally pulling the man away. Owen let out a breath, heart thudding in his chest. He turned to check on the server she was fine and then glanced around, ready to disappear into the crowd, until he noticed the man watching him from across the room. Tall, impeccably dressed in a dark tailored suit, jaw set, eyes sharp, powerful. Owen had no idea he'd just caught the attention of the host of the Gala billionaire CEO and tech magnate, York Rivera. "What's your name?" York asked later, catching Owen just as he was getting ready to leave. Owen blinked, startled. Owen Reyes." York nodded slowly. "You handled that situation well. I just didn't want anyone getting hurt." "You didn't hesitate," York said. "Most people would have waited for someone else to step in." Owen looked down at his worn shoes. "I'm just a dad. I don't have time to wait around when things go wrong." That made York pause. His gaze flicked to the small school pin still clipped to Owen's lapel. "You were here for the fundraiser." "My daughter goes to a Verstone Elementary. Special education program. Isn't that the school with the outdated facilities?" "Yeah," Owen said quietly, "but she loves it there, and the teachers, God, they're trying. They just need a little help." York was quiet for a long moment. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "What? I want to show you something." Owen hesitated, but eventually followed York through the velvet-curtained hallway and up a private elevator. When the doors opened, they stepped into a penthouse suite overlooking the entire city. Owen's jaw dropped, floor-to-ceiling windows. A grand piano in the corner. A bar stocked with liquors he couldn't even pronounce. It was like stepping into another world. York walked over to a sleek black desk and picked up a tablet. "I'm donating $200,000 to a Verstone special ed program tomorrow morning. But I want you to be the one who announces it to the principal, and your daughter." Owen's chest tightened. "Why me?" "Because you give a damn," York said simply, "and people like you deserve to be noticed." Owen didn't know what to say. His hands were shaking. "And one more thing," York added. "I'm hiring you." Owen blinked. "For what?" "Community outreach. My company's been expanding. I need someone who understands people, who's real." "I'm not," Owen swallowed. "I don't have a degree in anything fancy." "I don't care," York said. "You have heart." "That's more than most of the people I meet." Owen stared at him, stunned. I don't even know what to say." "Say yes," York said, almost amused. "And show up Monday morning." A week later, Owen stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his new suit tailored, spotless, and paid for by York Rivera himself. Sienna was bouncing on her toes beside him. "Daddy, you look like a superhero," he laughed. "I feel like one." He didn't tell her about the raise, the benefits, or the fact that he finally had savings for the first time in years. He just kissed her forehead and drove her to school. When he walked into work, he was greeted with a smile by the receptionist and led to a sleek office on the 15th floor, and York was waiting. "You clean up well," York said, standing beside a woman in a navy blue dress. Owen's breath caught. She was beautiful. Not just in a glamorous, model-type way, but in the way her eyes sparkled when she smiled. Confident, composed, there was something about her that made the room feel warmer. "This is Olivia Zane," York said, "my head of creative partnerships. She'll be working closely with you." "Hi," she said, offering her hand. Owen took it, feeling a jolt of something he hadn't felt in a long time, not since his wife left, not since he stopped believing love would ever happen for him again. "Hi," he said, holding her gaze just a little longer than he should have. York watched the exchange with a knowing look. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. "You're late," Olivia said, glancing at the slim watch on her wrist as Owen stepped into the glass-walled conference room. "I know," Owen exhaled, tugging at his tie. "My babysitter canceled last minute. I had to drop my daughter off with my neighbor." "You have a daughter?" she asked, flipping through a leather-bound portfolio. "Yeah, Sienna, she's 7. Sharp as hell and already better at math than I ever was." Her lips curved, but not in amusement, more like curiosity. "Good. You'll need sharp instincts in this role." Owen sank into the chair across from her, trying to ignore how pristine everything in this place looked compared to the chaos of his apartment. The room was bright, high above the city, and filled with sleek furniture that cost more than his car. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos of community centers, grant applications, handwritten letters from local organizations all asking for help. "This is the current docket," she said. "York wants you to evaluate which programs feel genuine, which ones actually serve people. You'll visit them, meet the directors, give me your impressions." Owen flipped through a few pages, already recognizing one of the youth shelters from his neighborhood. "You're serious. I get to decide who gets funding, you get to recommend. I get to push it through." York signs off. "That's the chain." He looked up. "And you're not worried I'll mess it up? If I thought you were going to fumble, I wouldn't be sitting here." Owen frowned slightly. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said. "You stepped in when nobody else did. That tells me more than a padded resume." He leaned back, watching her as she organized the next set of folders. There was something about the way she moved, precise but not cold. Like she was used to keeping things from unraveling. Like she didn't trust anyone else to do it right. "What about you?" he asked. "What about me? How'd you end up working with someone like York Rivera?" She didn't look up. "I was a media strategist for a broadcasting company. York poached me after I dismantled one of his press campaigns in under 48 hours. That sounds intense." It was. "And you just left for him?" "I left because I was tired of watching men in suits make decisions for people they'd never meet." York listens, that's rare. Owen nodded slowly. "You too close?" Her eyes flicked to his. "He doesn't let people close." "Not really." Before he could press, the door opened and York strode in, his phone still in hand. "Change of plans," he said, not breaking stride. "You two are flying to Charleston tomorrow morning. There's a veterans housing project I want eyes on. They're requesting a full rebuild and a tech training program." Owen frowned. "Tomorrow, that's fast." York looked up. "You told me you were ready." "I am. I just have to make sure Sienna's taken care of." "I'll have my office arrange child care," York said, already typing something into his phone. "Only the best, of course." Owen hesitated. "I usually don't leave her with people I don't know. She'd be with my head of security's wife. 3 kids, background in early childhood education." Olivia leaned forward. "It's only for 2 days. You'll be back before she misses you." Owen exhaled. "All right, I'll talk to her tonight." York gave a short nod and left as quickly as he'd arrived. The next morning, Owen stood at the edge of a private airstrip, watching a sleek black jet taxi toward them under the rising sun. Olivia stood beside him, coat buttoned, her hair swept back in a low twist. "I've never been on a private jet," he murmured. "You'll get used to it." "That sounds dangerous," she turned to him. "Why?" "Because it means I'm getting used to something I never thought I'd have." She studied him for a moment. "Don't confuse access with belonging. You earned this." As they boarded, Owen tried not to gawk at the leather seats, polished fixtures, and the tray of fresh pastries already waiting for them. Olivia sat across from him, flipping open her laptop before the wheels even left the ground. "You always work like this?" he asked. I don't know how to turn it off. He watched her tap out emails, her brow slightly furrowed. Do you ever want to? She paused, then closed the laptop. I used to think if I stopped, everything would fall apart. And now, I'm starting to think maybe I just didn't trust anyone else to carry the weight. They landed in Charleston just after noon. The air was warm and humid, and the drive to the housing project took them through narrow streets lined with historic buildings. The site itself was rough scaffolding half-assembled, workers sweating under the sun, and a group of veterans sitting under a makeshift canopy. Owen stepped out of the car, inhaling deeply. This feels real, he said. Olivia nodded. That's why we came. They spent the afternoon speaking with the project manager, shaking hands with residents, and reviewing blueprints that looked more like dreams than anything funded. Owen listened to a man named Walter describe how he'd been living in his truck before the project took him in. I've got a cot, a roof, and hot meals now, Walter said. It ain't much, but I feel human again. That night back at the hotel, Owen sat on the balcony with Olivia, the city lights flickering below them. You were good today, she said quietly. I just listened. Most people don't. He turned to her. Why do you? Her eyes didn't leave the skyline. Because someone once listened to me when I thought I didn't matter. It changed everything. They were quiet for a moment. You ever think about what you'd be doing if you weren't here? He asked. She looked at him then. All the time. But I don't regret this. Even with all the pressure, especially because of it. He nodded, then glanced down at the street below. I think I'm scared, he admitted. Of what? That I'm starting to believe this life might actually fit. Olivia turned to face him fully. Let it. Her voice was soft but steady. Like she wasn't just giving him permission, she was daring him to take it. And in that moment, under a sky full of stars he used to wish on from a cracked window in a cramped apartment, Owen Reyes didn't feel like an outsider anymore. Owen knocked lightly on the polished wooden door before stepping into York's office, the soft click of his new dress shoes echoing against the marble floor. The walls were lined with abstract paintings and towering bookshelves, but it was the floor-to-ceiling windows behind York's desk that dominated the space, opening out to a view of the skyline that still felt unreal to Owen no matter how many times he saw it. York didn't look up from the document he was reading. You're back early. Site tour wrapped quicker than expected. They already had everything prepared for review, Owen said. Olivia's downstairs meeting with the project accountant. York finally lifted his eyes, and they're the real deal. The numbers are tight, but they're doing good work. We should fund it. York nodded once, then set the folder aside. You're adapting faster than I thought you would. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning. Both, York said. This world moves fast. People either keep up or get swallowed. I'm not trying to outpace anyone. I just want to do right by the people who never get noticed. York leaned back slightly, studying him. You're not like the others I've hired. That's good. But it also means you're going to disrupt the way things are done. Owen folded his arms. If the way things are done isn't working, maybe it needs disrupting. A trace of surprise flickered across York's face, followed by something else: respect. He stood, walking around to the front of the desk. I want you to come with me tonight. There's a gathering at the Rivers estate. Private, invitation only, influential people. I want you to see what decisions look like when power and money are in the same room. Owen hesitated. And what would I even say to those people? You won't need to say much. Just watch. Listen. You'll learn more in an hour there than in a month of meetings. Later that evening, Owen stood just inside the arched entrance of the Rivers estate, a sprawling mansion perched above the hills with sweeping terraces and a garden that looked like something out of a dream. The valet had taken his car a loaner from York's garage, and the front doors had opened to a butler who'd taken his coat without blinking at his confusion on where to go. He found Olivia near a marble staircase, dressed in a tailored navy gown that shimmered faintly in the candlelight. She noticed him immediately. You made it. I wasn't sure I should. You belong here more than half the people in this room. You just don't know it yet. He glanced around. The crowd was older, polished, dressed in expensive fabrics and guarded expressions. Conversations floated through the air: real estate, legislation, international deals punctuated with laughter that didn't quite reach the eyes. And then a man stepped forward. extending his hand toward Owen. "You're the one who stopped the outburst at the Astoria Gala." Owen blinked. "I guess I am. I'm Senator Groth. York mentioned you might be worth watching." Owen shook his hand, unsure whether that was praise or warning. "I just did what I thought was right." "Good, that's rare." The senator walked off, leaving Owen standing beside Olivia again. "Is this what all of York's circles look like?" he asked quietly. "Most of them, but not all. And you move through this like it's nothing." She tilted her head slightly. "I've learned how to wear armor that doesn't show." Owen nodded slowly. "Must be heavy. Only when you forget to take it off." He didn't have time to respond before York appeared, flanked by a woman in a deep purple dress with diamonds at her throat. "This is Evelyn Cross," York said. "She runs the largest private development firm in the Eastern Corridor." Evelyn extended her hand to Owen, her gaze sharp and assessing. "You're the one who caught York's attention. That doesn't happen often. I'm still figuring out why he bothered. Because he sees what most of us don't. That's how he wins." As she walked away, Owen turned to York. "Is that what this is? A game?" York's eyes flicked back toward the crowd. "It's a board. Everyone's a piece. You just have to decide if you're playing or getting played." Owen exhaled. "I'm not good at pretending." "Then don't," York said. "That's your advantage." A few moments later, Olivia pulled Owen aside, leading him to a quiet alcove lined with ivy-covered windows. "I saw your face during that conversation with Evelyn," she said. "I felt like I was being measured." "You were. And she hasn't decided yet, but she will. They all will. The question is, do you want their approval? I don't need it. I just need enough space to do what matters." She studied him for a moment, and something softened in her expression. "You're the first person in years who said that and actually meant it." A subtle chime sounded across the estate, signaling the start of the private dinner. York caught Owen's eye from across the room and gave a slight nod. Later, seated at a long table filled with crystal and silver, Owen listened to conversations about funding pipelines and shared portfolios. But then York stood and spoke about the Veterans Project in Charleston, about the men who'd fought for the country and returned to crumbling walls and forgotten promises. He paused, then gestured across the table. "Owen Reyes is the reason I'm backing that rebuild." He saw it. He understood it. "I trusted him, and I was right to." A few heads turned. A few glasses paused mid-air. Owen felt every eye on him, and for the first time not with discomfort, but with a sense of quiet certainty. After the dinner, Olivia found him on the back terrace, looking out over the sprawling garden lit with lanterns. "You didn't flinch." "I felt like I might," he admitted. "But you didn't." He turned to her. "Why does it feel like I'm on the edge of something I don't understand?" "Because change always feels like a cliff. The trick is figuring out whether you're falling or flying." He looked at her, the wind catching a strand of her hair. "And which do you think I'm doing?" Her voice was quiet. "That depends on whether or not you believe you deserve this." "I'm still working on that," he said. She stepped closer, not quite touching him. "Let me know when you're ready to stop doubting it." They stood there for a long moment, the lights from the estate casting a soft glow around them, the sound of distant laughter fading under the weight of everything unspoken. And for the first time since everything had changed, Owen didn't feel like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. He felt like he was finally stepping into something real. The rooftop was quiet except for the hum of the city below. String lights hung between the railings like soft constellations, casting a warm glow over the long table set with linen, porcelain, and tiny flickering candles. A garden of potted olive trees and lavender framed the space, their scent drifting on the evening breeze. Owen stood near the edge, a glass of sparkling water in one hand, watching the skyline. He wasn't used to being the guest of honor, especially not at a dinner that York Rivera had arranged just for him. "Do you ever stop moving?" Olivia asked as she walked up beside him. She wore a slate gray coat over a silk blouse, and her hair was loose for the first time since he'd met her. He gestured toward the city. "Hard to stop when everything around you keeps going." She rested one hand on the railing. "You've been quieter since we got back." He nodded. "I've been thinking about," he glanced at her, "what happens when the things you thought were impossible start becoming real, when you're not fighting just to keep your head above water anymore." That kind of shift can feel heavier than struggle. I keep waiting for something to fall apart. Like maybe I'm not built for all this. Olivia turned to face him. You're not here because someone handed you a favor, Owen. You're here because when everything was stacked against you, you still chose to act with integrity. That's what York saw. What I saw. He looked at her, unsure of what to say. Before he could reply, York stepped onto the rooftop, his presence as composed as always, his black jacket catching the light. I was hoping you two hadn't disappeared, York said. Dinner's ready. They joined the others at the table, heads of departments, project leaders, and a few faces Owen now recognized from partnerships they'd approved together. But the evening wasn't about business. There were no files, no presentations. It was laughter, shared stories, and toasts made with vintage wine. When dessert came, York stood and held up a hand. This dinner isn't about contracts or negotiations, he said. It's about recognizing impact. And tonight, I want to recognize the person who reminded me why I started all of this. Owen shifted in his seat, unsure of what was coming. Most people in this world learn to live behind polished walls. Owen Reyes walked in without armor, without an angle, and he brought us back to the reason we fund schools, rebuild homes, and stand up for the overlooked. He didn't ask for a spotlight. But sometimes, the ones who don't ask are the ones who deserve it most. Owen's chest tightened as the table applauded. He stood slowly, unsure of how to respond. I don't have a speech, he said, his voice steady despite the rush of emotion, but I do have gratitude. Not just for the opportunity, but for the chance to do something that matters. For the first time in a long time, I wake up and feel like I'm building something my daughter can be proud of. He sat down to quiet nods and raised glasses. Later, as the guests filtered out and the rooftop emptied, Owen lingered behind. Olivia stood near the table collecting her things, but her eyes met his. He walked toward her slowly. I've been thinking about what you said, he began. About whether I believe I belong here. And, she asked, her voice soft, I'm starting to. But not just because of what York gave me, because of what you helped me see. A breeze lifted her hair slightly. She didn't look away. I don't want to keep pretending I only admire you because we work together, he said. I think about you, about what it would be like outside of all this. She was silent for a heartbeat. I've spent years keeping everything in its place, she said. Control was how I survived. But when I'm with you, that control doesn't feel necessary anymore, and that scares me. He reached for her hand slowly, letting her decide, her fingers closed around his. I'm not asking you to have it all figured out, he said. I just want to know if you feel it too, she nodded once. I do. He leaned in and they kissed firm, certain, grounded in everything they hadn't said until now. No rush, no confusion, just clarity. 3 weeks later, Owen stood outside of Verstone Elementary, watching Sienna run across the playground in her new shoes, laughing with the other kids as they climbed the updated jungle gym. The special education wing had been fully renovated. New sensory equipment, reading rooms, private counselors. It was more than he'd hoped for when this all started. Beside him, Olivia held his hand. She'd met Sienna 2 days ago and the connection was instant. Dad. Sienna waved, barreling toward them. Look what I made, she handed him a drawing. It was the three of them, him, Sienna, and Olivia. Standing in front of a tall building with a heart drawn over the roof, he swallowed hard. I love it. Sienna looked up at Olivia. Are you going to come to the science night with us next week? Olivia smiled gently. If it's all right with your dad, I'd love to. Owen looked between them. It's more than all right. That weekend, he and Olivia stood on that same rooftop from before now strung with lights for a private celebration York had insisted on. York raised a toast not as a billionaire, but as a man who'd learned to trust someone outside his circle. To the best risk I ever took. Owen raised his glass, Olivia's fingers laced through his. Later that night, as the city stretched out before them and the lights blinked like distant hopes finally coming true, Owen whispered, I never thought one moment could change everything. Olivia leaned into him. Sometimes it only takes one. He kissed her again, this time with nothing standing between them, and for the first time in his life, Owen Reyes wasn't surviving, he was living, fully, completely loved, seen, and home. The scent of fresh paint still lingered in the air when Owen stepped into the new Community Innovation Center, York's latest initiative, one that Owen had helped design from the ground up. Glass walls let in the afternoon sun, and inside, clusters of teens surrounded computer stations while others explored the 3D printing lab or tested robotics kits. It was a place meant to spark possibility in kids who'd never been told they were allowed to dream. He walked past the meteor room, stopping at a mural in progress. A girl in a wheelchair was painting a crimson phoenix rising from gears and circuitry. She looked up shyly when he paused. "Is this yours?" he asked. She nodded. "It's supposed to show how you can build something beautiful out of pieces." Owen crouched beside her. "You already have." When he turned, Olivia was standing near the entrance, her coat draped over one arm, chin tilted as she watched a group of students presenting an app prototype to a volunteer mentor. "You did this," she said quietly when he joined her. "We did." She shook her head. "No. You kept pushing even when the budget got cut twice, even when the city tried to stall it. You didn't fold." "I couldn't," he said. "This place, it's not just a center, it's proof." "Of what?" "That we don't have to wait for permission to change the story." Her hand slid into his. "You've changed more than that." He looked at her then, really looked. Not as the poised strategist who used to keep her heart locked behind polished smiles, but as the woman who now laughed easily beside Sienna, who stayed up late brainstorming scholarship models with him, who leaned into love without bracing for the fall. "You're staying, right?" he asked. "With me?" "With us?" She turned fully, brow lifting. "Was there ever a question? I guess I keep expecting the ground to shift under me again." "It won't." She squeezed his hand. "Not this time." They left the center just before sunset, heading toward the car parked at the curb. As they approached, they saw Sienna through the rear window, holding a clipboard and scribbling something furiously, while a woman in a bright scarf sat beside her, clearly invested in whatever important research was underway. "She's been interviewing everyone she meets about what makes a hero," Owen said as he opened the passenger door for Olivia. "I hope she includes herself on that list." "I told her she should." When they got home, Sienna ran straight to the dining table and spread out her notes. "I'm almost ready to present," she announced, looking between them with a dramatic pause. "But I need to finish the final question." Olivia leaned down. "What's that? What makes someone family, real family?" Owen crouched beside her. "What do you think?" Sienna tapped her chin. "I think it's when someone stays, even when it's hard, even when they don't have to." Olivia's eyes met Owen's, and something passed between them, weightless but anchored, like a promise they'd already made without needing to say the words. That weekend, they hosted a quiet dinner with York, who arrived uncharacteristically early. He brought a rare bottle of red wine and a small gift box, which he handed to Sienna without fanfare. Inside was a silver compass engraved with the words, "To the bravest navigator I know." Sienna beamed. "Now I can find my way anywhere." York gave a rare smile. "You already can." After dinner, as they stood on the balcony watching the stars emerge one by one, York turned to Owen. "You've built something that doesn't need my name on it anymore. That's the goal. Independence." Owen nodded. "I know. And I'll keep building. I'm counting on it." As York left, he paused beside Olivia. "I've known you a long time. I've never seen you this at ease." She didn't deflect. "That's because I am." After the door closed, Owen pulled her into the kitchen where candles flickered beside a modest cake Sienna had insisted on baking herself. The frosting was uneven, and the sprinkles were unapologetically chaotic. He wrapped his arms around Olivia from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. "You remember the first time we talked?" he asked. "You were wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big and acting like you didn't belong in that marble palace." "I didn't." "Not then. You do now." He turned her gently and held her gaze. "I've been thinking about something." She raised a brow. "Dangerous," he smiled. "I want to make this official. You, me, Sienna. I want to wake up next to you and not have to imagine a future that already feels like home." Olivia's heart skipped. "Are you proposing?" "I'm saying I want forever, but only if it's with you." She didn't hesitate. "Then yes." 1,000 times yes. They kissed, slow and certain, as Sienna came running in with a paper crown for each of them. "You're the queen now," she told Olivia, "and Dad's the king, and I'm the boss of both," Owen laughed. Sounds about right. Months later, under a canopy of garden lights with close friends, Owen and Olivia stood hand in hand as Sienna read a poem she'd written for their wedding. It wasn't a grand affair, no media, no spectacle. Just music, laughter, and the kind of love that didn't need to be shouted to be felt in every breath. When they danced, it wasn't choreographed. It was messy and free, her head on his chest, his arms around her waist, and Sienna twirling around them with her flower crown askew. They didn't need chandeliers or tuxedos. They had each other, and every day after that they kept choosing each other. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop, no more pretending, just love. Real, whole, and fully lived.